We're live and we're
We're
back.
live.
Oh my God, it's the ChatGTM podcast. What version are we on now, Chad?
Don't know, don't care.
Don't
I just
care.
love what we do.
We run our own race. We're not counting.
That's
We're
right.
just going. I love that.
We're just
How you
going.
doing, man?
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, we had our first snow here up in the Boston area
A little
this week.
dusting.
It was awesome. Even before I woke up, one of the kids was outside building a snowball with nothing. Right?
I hear
it's just
Charlie
nothing,
Brown
but he,
Peanuts music right now.
he was forcing it.
Yeah. Little Charles Schultz in my head. So, you guys doing anything good this weekend?
Probably.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at our family calendar yet.
I'm just excited. We're all going to be in New York on Tuesday, hanging out with some of our friends from Branded and on Park Avenue.
Sick. Absolutely. I've known about this party for a while in previous years. Hey, now we're going to be there.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see what happens there. Heck, I think we're here for a podcast though, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
This is going to be a good one. Yeah. So I'll start the stage with this. We're at FS Tech, and one of the big themes when it was like the keynote discussion was build versus buy.
Yeah, that's
right. Brands that build their own stuff, or at least that's a major part of their strategy, and brands that say, I'll just go buy best of breed technologies because that's easier to maintain and build, etc. At RFDC, ran into a guy who franchisee of two notable brands, and just stood out immediately as someone who has a strong grasp of this debate and is actually doing some substantial building on their end as a franchise operator. And just that's unique in our industry. So wanted to have him on the pod, tell a story, and have all our audience learn and be inspired and improve by virtue of this discussion.
Cool. So who do we have waiting in the lobby?
We have Lee Howley.
Okay.
Howley Company. So let's bring him out.
Fantastic. All right, well, everybody, let's welcome Lee Howley to the stage, and here he is.
Hey, Lee.
Hello.
Hey,
it's great to be here.
How's life treating you?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a Friday.
Yes, it is. Now, for entrepreneurs, I don't know if that's a genuine Friday or it's a day where we're going to not get phone calls and can get work done.
Yeah, I think we mostly rely on the last part of that, but there are no weekends in the restaurant industry.
That's true. That's true.
That goes for you too on the IT side?
Unfortunately, those emails never stop.
Yeah.
So
not surprised.
So Chad's told me a little bit about how you guys met at RFDC and some of the work you do. So tell us a little bit about Howley Enterprises and your brands that you support and who you are.
Absolutely. The company was started by my dad a number of years ago, initially dealt in real estate, but through happenstance, he got involved with the Panera brand and started his own franchise. And then as luck would have it, out of college, I did not go into the restaurant industry. I decided to do my own thing and developed an awesome relationship with someone in IT. He was my mentor, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Mentors are great.
They are. I still talk with him regularly to this day, but I wouldn't be here without him. And when he left the company I had initially joined out of college, he asked me to come along with him. Little did I know that was a restaurant company. So that's where I got my start in the restaurant business.
Get the guy off to find you and bring you back in.
I wouldn't put it past him. So after dipping my toe in the restaurant waters, I ended up coming home and working in the family business. Not my intention at all, but I brought with me kind of a number of years of experience working outside the restaurant industry, which I think has allowed us to get to where we are as far as what we're going to be talking about today, I suspect.
That's the thing we find a lot. So you're making a really good, or starting and opening a really good point, is that we're a bubble, right? The hospitality industry is a bubble. We are, for lack of a better word, an echo chamber. We bounce our same ideas off of the same great thought leaders, but also it's inside of a bubble. So people like you and that are bringing honey back to the hive from other places, I think this is a massive route for innovation for us.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's always interesting. And my mentor was the same way. He was not a restaurant guy. We both got hired to come into a restaurant company from outside. And it was great for everyone involved because we wanted it to do things a certain way. And we were often told, no, you can't do it like that. You haven't worked in a restaurant. And a lot of times they were right. But then there was an equal number of times where we were right. Hey, you need to stop doing it this old-fashioned way. Trust us. The technology's there.
That kind of opens up like our first kind of subject that we were thinking about when we are coming into this call. When restaurant companies are out there and they're figuring out if there's a solution on the market or do they build it, right? And some people go, "Who wants that mess? Why would they want to own it?" How did people come to the decision, where companies or organizations come to those decisions that, well, we want to own every inch of this. We're now a dev shop. We're going to put time and man hours and actually ownership into product management, and because it's not just we do it, we have to keep it, maintain it, and support it after that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
how's that work?
well, I mean, you just laid it all out. It's a huge investment when you think about it in those terms. And there's definitely been some restaurant companies that have toyed with that. Domino's and Panera in particular,
Yeah.
both have gone down that route, built their own point of sale systems and their whole back end infrastructure. But I always approach it from the side that I learned in school and then also in my first job was if we go with a best of breed software, we have to bend every part of our business to fit inside this box. And is that something that we want to do? And if it is, great, but if it's not, or we don't think we're going to fit in there, now we need to either look at a different piece of software or do it ourselves and then get the tool and the processes that we really want. And of course, with that comes the investment of time and resources into maintaining that. But if you truly get what you want and something that works with your processes, then it's all worth it.
Yeah. One thing that occurs to me is that in your position as part of the family that has this thing, there's a strong understanding that you're going to be around,
Yes.
right? And then I think about, hey, let's build it. I'm partway through. I'm bouncing off to my next gig, and now you got I'm the architect. I've left, but I'm really sticking to you while I'm there. It's almost a hostage situation. Yeah,
It can be.
Yeah.
The pros of a family business.
It is, and also I should know that I'm not by any stretch a developer. I've actually hired one that knows what they're doing, and part of that is them understanding, hey, I don't want to have you in a hostage situation. They've basically built a private GitHub repo. And for your audience members that don't know what GitHub is, it's a
Pretty dope.
typically public repository of code, but you can also make them private. And that means anyone that joins our company as a developer can go look at the code and all the notes that have been formulated around that. So it can be handed off. Obviously, there would be a loss of knowledge, but we're doing our best to insulate ourselves from that problem, even though technically I should still be around in a couple of years.
Yeah. But it almost feels like I should hit a best practice button that shouts out loud, best practice.
Yes.
Chad, sorry, I dominated this.
No, and I know there's a lot of our technology vendor friends are screaming like, you couldn't possibly do this as well as we do in our zone. But talking with you, and maybe you could share, Lee, a tool you've built that significantly outperforms existing market operations for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Our most prominent one, at least for us internally, has been our third-party aggregator reconciliation tool. So for anyone that operates in the restaurant industry, third-party delivery services are a given. You have to offer your services on DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub. I think Postmates went away. I can't keep track of them anymore. But you also then have to reconcile all those sales. Yeah, sure, they show up on my point of sale, but at the end of the day, I also have to remember that I need to receive money from those companies for the money that, people spent on their site and not ours. And we build a process that effectively just takes all that data and dumps it right into our accounting system. We'll even do the automated journal entries. And we probably have saved 4+ hours a week of internal time. And it's a virtually painless process. It might take 5 minutes of someone's time to send the files to our process, and then in our case, they just go right into the accounting system. There's no waiting for a reply or anything like that.
Is there a special kind of challenge or dynamic around bridging this across two different brands? I imagine you're doing this for both, right?
Yeah, no, we are. If we treated those two different brands like their own companies, and so when we onboarded the company, they got their kind of respective API call that they make to the accounting system, and then also the accounting maps. So we got to put them in the right journal with the right department and accounting number to create all those entries. And that's just the initial onboarding process is what's your company, what's your journal, what's your account numbers for sales and returns and all that stuff. And then the file that every company gets is the same. It doesn't matter what company you are. The DoorDash file and the Uber Eats file for those sales are all the same.
How does it work internally, though, with the change management and managing two distinctly different teams?
At the end of the day, it is really one code source because we very much eat our own dog food. That's a metaphor that I love.
Oh,
But the change management kind of happens naturally because
yeah.
if we run into a problem, we got to fix it for ourselves. We're basically making ourselves happy every time we fix a problem. So, yeah. And I'm sorry there if I didn't answer the question
I
that you
think I
were
answered the
asking.
question. I thought I'd a little bit more. Yeah, that's rough, but sometimes it's easier, right? You're actually improving lives.
So, Lee, want to get to, there's probably even more technologies. If you really want to hit on anything else you've developed in-house, please do. But I also want to ask about like the impact on the team, right? Like when you have these solutions, how have they improved your team's performance or simplified decision making or any of these more impact type areas that you might want to hit on?
Money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before this was a manual process. This was we download a CSV file, we throw it in an Excel document. Maybe we have a macro for that specific company and brand, and maybe we don't. Maybe we're just manually massaging it until it fits into our accounting system. That was, like I said, that's where those hours came in. You have 1 to 2 hours per company, and we had three,
Mm-hmm.
4 companies that we were managing, so it added up. Giving that time back to an accountant is meaningful, especially when you're talking about really dry work. This is manual, this is making your eyes glaze over. It's also easy to make mistakes. So when you automate something and it's very rigid and it goes from point to point, we don't typically see mistakes anymore. And now we can give them their time back to focus on more meaningful interactions with our accounting system that does need their brain power, that does need their input.
Makes sense. It's funny because we said this on the last discussion we had on the pod, which was when you can cut out, right, even if it's not a huge amount of time, but just a significant amount of time on a job people don't like, it has a big set of ripple implications for that person and their role and effectiveness across the board and morale. And so I'm sensing that's happening here as well.
Absolutely. No one wants to come in and do data entry. At least I don't think they do. I doubt there's a few out there that maybe enjoy that, but that's not what we want for our employees. So,
Yeah.
For some reason, they keep getting stuck back on the previous part of the conversation around change management, but change management is also driving adoption. Is that something that, do you have any barriers to adoption, or how do you drive the adoption of the new systems you're putting in place to make sure they're being leveraged correctly by either the executives or the end users?
yeah, no, that's a great question. We have another tool out there, a reporting tool, which is a much perhaps better fit for this conversation, where the adoption is not great. And
Ah,
yeah, it's mediocre. We'll put it there. And that's because we're treading on other people's toes. So Panera has a whole suite of reporting platforms, and then we built our own because we decided that there wasn't good enough for us. I guess it's the most polite way to put it. But
sorry, Panera.
we couldn't, yeah, it works, but it wasn't as efficient as we wanted, and it wasn't as clean. And we had external data sources that we wanted to plug into it and see alongside of it. And none of that was really possible because we weren't building it. So we built it. And unfortunately, not everyone in our company uses it because they still have those old crutches they can lean on with the Panera data and the reporting that's already there for them. And we have, to be clear, no issues with that. But for the people that do use it, we talk with them regularly and try to continuously make improvements with their feedback. This isn't just about us anymore, especially with this tool that we've built, because we want them to be part of the process. We're way too far removed from operations to know what good ideas are anymore. We threw their sales up there early on because everyone needs sales reporting, but then you get into the weeds and it's all of a sudden, okay, well, we need to know who approved the refund on this sale because it turns out we think someone might be pocketing that cash refund. And now we can go back to our HRIS system, tie in all the employee data to this approval and know who's making all these potentially false refunds in our system. And there's been a lot of instances like that over time. We can take the scheduling data that Panera provides us and compare it directly against the hours that people have already worked. And we can even go back in our historical database and say, hey, this person averages 40 hours a week already, but we're halfway through the week and they've worked 30. Probably going to be in overtime if we don't make some adjustments. Or They've worked 20 hours. They're scheduled for 25 more. They're going to work 45 hours if everything continues the way it does. And we can, 3 days in advance of someone hitting overtime, we can know that they're probably going to hit overtime.
Okay, my back office brain is going crazy because this is something I've lived for years.
Yeah,
and
you're thinking this on one of the. I know you're thinking one of the same
I'm
things I
literally
am
going to
too.
Cannonball in.
I got to find out what's going on here. So Panera has a back office, right?
Absolutely.
And it does labor scheduling and reporting, right?
Most certainly.
Okay. And that's not fitting your need.
Correct. It does the scheduling, but
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
won't.
But
It,
so okay, so you're doing theoretical hours versus scheduled versus actual, right? Reporting
Correct.
there, and the delta of what's happening, and it's not intelligently telling you how to allocate people or smooth it, or
Oh, it does actually a great job of helping you schedule. The problem in a lot of cases is people come in and pick up shifts because they know they can, they know they can. Maybe they're trying to sneak that
Sure,
overtime in, or
Right.
maybe the cafe is just understaffed. And then we're not going to get around that one. You have an understaffed location, you're going to end up with people working overtime. But at the very least, we can now proactively see.
spread it out so you're not going to hit overtime on each employee and have everybody
Ex-
get more equal hours.
Exactly.
Got it. I was like, what's going on here? I need to jump in and help. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually have to give Panera a lot of credit. Their scheduling tool is awesome. I don't want to say anything bad about that. Also, you have to complete a schedule weeks in advance.
Mm.
Your schedule is done 2 weeks in advance, typically. And so once you're in that week, unless you want to jump in there and really analyze it every day, you're not going to necessarily be looking at that schedule. And
So
our
that's
tool just kind
proactive
of
from reactive to proactive.
So we definitely got to get Lee on the phone with Sejoya GM Pilot. These are two guys that are living in the same
First thing
world,
to hit
trying
my
to
brain.
figure out how to help a brand optimize their schedules. That would be a fun combo.
Yeah.
were they the ones on your pilot episode?
Actually, I wasn't the pilot episode, but it was like number 2.
They
or
were
something.
on our
Okay.
GM pilot episode. If we're being
Yeah, I watched
Sorry,
that.
dad jokes are real. Yeah. Yeah, happy to make the introduction. They're super smart, super fun. People like you guys get together. I can only imagine what would come next. Like just yeah.
And they're like all a theme of type of company we also work with, like just companies in AI and machine learning. And I'm curious, Lee, are you experimenting or doing anything in AI machine learning in your operations yet?
We're dipping our toes in those waters. We collectively heard about this very cool technology that lets us do inventory potentially with just an iPad. You can walk through a room in a minute and have accurate inventory. Talk about getting time back. That's been a theme of us building our own stuff. But man, sending him
Wait, you can't bang that out in an afternoon?
in a freezer or a cooler, no less. No, I wouldn't want to. And I feel bad for our managers that have to. So I'm really excited that something like this exists and that it's something we can hopefully put in their hands soon.
I can't tell you how happy I am to hear the intersection of two paths that I know very well about. There'll be more news to come, folks, if we aren't able to talk about this, but there's a lot of really cool things that are occurring to me when he's talking. Thinking about tech, right? In any system we put into a restaurant, especially anybody who wants to grow, like how do you ensure scalability? Like how do you know you can make that thing scalable, extensible, and all those fun words that say it's going to be able to grow with the business?
It's best to start with that idea, and I've learned that the hard way so many different times. And usually it's because I'm playing from behind. You get this problem you have to fix, and your mandate is you need to fix this yesterday. And so you fix it, but then you realize when you're done that it doesn't move very far without a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
And so everything that we build now has the absolute starting block is it has to scale. Whatever it is, we have to be able to do 2 or 3 quick things and have it work on a new company, because that happens. That's our idea, is we want to grow. And if none of the things that we built to make things easy for ourselves can grow with us, then they are not that great of tools.
And is that down to disciplines around same code base? Everything's written in the same language? Like what are those just general parameters that somebody to think about?
Yeah, so a lot of it is definitely what you just said. Same code base. I let our developer choose a different code base than what I was using. So now it's me that has to do a lot of learning. And then on top of that, it is also fundamentally distilling things down to their base level. What is a company? What is it? Is it an address? Is it,
Oh boy,
is it the name?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's taking those things and just distilling them all the way down to what is the bare essence of this, because then we can turn anything into that. And so once we have that kind of fundamental understanding of what each object is, we can bring in anybody, because we can still abstract some stuff away and keep those details, but it will fit into our core model.
So that opens up something also I think that's interesting, because a lot of the folks that we talk to and folks that might be listening now are really interested in organizational and industry standards, right? And that it seems to be something elusive to our industry as a whole. We have friends over at RTN that are valiantly fighting to create standards in our industry, whether it's APIs and what have you. Are there certain standards that you've looked at, you're saying I might need to connect to the Panera Net systems or my other potential acquisitions that I need to be open, or are there any of those standards that you're baking in or that you've looked at?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Everyone's got a different concept of what an API is and
Mm-hmm.
what kind of data it should return, if it's RESTful, if it's JSON, if it's, and don't even, the time thing is always a big one, because anyone that doesn't send their time in UTC
Mm-hmm.
frustrates me, and also my developer, because you introduce scenarios where if someone works at 1:30, 2:30 in the morning, and they happen to do that on a date change, when did they really start?
It's Y2K all over again.
It is, except it can happen twice a year. There's like little things like that where
Yeah.
when we're actually now shopping around for tools like this, those are like step number 1 and 2 questions before we even think about implementing them. And if they don't support them and we're forced into using them, that's also step number 1, is how do we work around this?
With everything we've already talked about, whether it's summary or introducing new things, I'm curious, as you've developed custom software and thinking about other franchisees who might be considering doing the same, looking to do the same, share some of the biggest lessons you've learned doing this, right? That should inform people's major decisions on whether they do this and how they start or go about it.
Yeah, one of the best things that led to us being able to do this was talking just with people in my company. Stop working in your silos, go work in accounting for a day,
Mm.
go work in payroll for a day. Because all of a sudden, especially as an IT person who lives for efficiency and optimization, I see what they're doing and I go, holy Moses, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing that? And it's just because it's what they've always done. And a lot of those departments are definitely stuck in a rut of doing things the old way. And so if I can say anything about thinking about what your next step should be in moving towards either building your own thing or even acquiring a piece of software, it's just get your people to talk to each other first and realize where the potentials for savings are. I think it takes companies a lot of time to realize they need to change, because these conversations don't happen on a weekly basis or a daily basis.
That makes sense. So, what's next for your tech stack? And are there any emerging technologies you're excited about?
The leaps and bounds that AI makes seemingly daily, I'm sure that we will be involving more of that in our organization soon, or at least receiving some table scraps from our franchisors. But our big focus is to move to serverless architecture. We don't want infrastructure anywhere. And Amazon or Azure, they make this easy. And all your
Right.
code can run in an environment that is not tied even to a specific machine. So you put a code request out there, who knows, it could happen anywhere in the world, but the important thing is it will always happen because there's always extra compute out there. And it just makes scaling really easy for us. We never have to worry about versioning control of the physical hardware and operating system that we're running on. That's our primary focus, is just how do we grow without having to worry about things like what version of Windows we're running.
Makes sense. All right. I'm looking at the clock. I think it's time, Michael, to
Is
do
it
some
is
key
it the
takeaways.
summary?
Yeah, let's hit them up.
All right, I feel like I should have an air horn or something, but with less fanfare. You had a lot of good stuff, Lee. And as we go along, I frantically type notes trying to think about what are the key takeaways that we really care about in here. And I might not catch all of them, but when I'm listening to you, one of the first things that occurred to me is you're going to build something because you have really, truly specific and unique needs. Now, your needs might not be unique in the business world, but how you look at them and how you need to get to things, I think that is unique, and people can't necessarily interpret that. Also, when you're talking about why these things occur, it comes back to it's necessity. Tools like this are born because of necessity is the mother of invention. That's the old adage that holds true now as it ever did. Great tools come out of businesses where somebody goes, I can fix a problem. I can fix a problem. I'm close enough to it. I get it. And somebody might be just coding to a market versus you're right there, right next to it, where you can do something completely different. I think that really does hit home. I think the big answer is ownership versus control, ownership and control when it comes to building your own stuff too, right? If I'm somebody that wants complete control of my environment, boy, build is probably the way to go, right? That I can do whatever I want with it. I have every bit of flexibility I need. And at the end of the day, the person I need to farm for information is me or my team. I think also what you brought up on the idea of breaking down the silos in a business is absolutely massive. I think no matter how much we try, they're always going to be there, whether it's relationship silos between departments or technical silos and how things talk. But it all breaks down the same thing, which is a form of communication. So I think that if you take that time, and I agree that if you take that time for teams to engage each other and to invite people to walk in each other's shoes a little bit, they'll get a lot further. Walt Disney said, if you want to be the CEO of Disney, you need to work every job in the park. I think it's a phenomenal idea. Yeah. So you work every job in the park, what finance is doing, how ops is doing, how things you operate and integrate and or affect these people's lives. It also goes back to the idea that a tool made for operations as an IT project is bound to fail if operations hasn't given it, but it's blessing, right? I'm going to use this every day, but you didn't ask me about it. Big deal.
Yeah.
And the last part that you ended with was, and I think you're right, serverless architecture. That's where it's going, right? That I can now get out of the versioning game. I can now get out of the hardware game. Boy, I don't have to worry about refreshes. That's all up to my vendor, and I'm just paying that bill for my hardware as a service or my hosting and infrastructure. And the fact that it is instantly scalable to any size environment based on what AWS or Microsoft is delivering or the other hosting providers that are out there. I don't think anybody's doing their own rack space anymore, are they?
I'm sure they are, but yeah, it's going the way of
It's
the
getting few
dodo.
and far between. I love that. And as everything becomes cheaper and cheaper on memory and storage and all that, it just makes so much sense. I learned a lot today. I really did. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you. And I found out one thing, you're a gamer.
I am.
I think we vibe with that too. Anyways, Chad, you want to take us out?
So I think one of the coolest takeaways, action items, is that this software, right, that Lee was talking about earlier with accounting reconciliation for third parties, they've actually made available externally, right? So as another operator, if that sounds like something you want to check out, you can go to their website, howley.company, and learn more, or reach out to Lee on LinkedIn and see what it's like to get your hands on some software developed by an operator who's putting it to their own use, right? And so that's going to look and feel a little bit different in a good way. So I would recommend anybody who's interested to follow up on that. And per usual, connect with our guest on LinkedIn. Lee, a cool guy, and as you learned today, very bright. I bet you, we didn't talk about this, Lee, but I'm guessing people who don't know you, Lee works for the family company, nepotism. It's like, dude, you schooled on all the stuff you needed to learn external to the industry. You come in and you're rocking it at top 2% level.
So that's the hero's journey, right? So Lee, somewhere along the way, had a call to adventure, and he went off to school. And he reluctantly accepted, and then he met some wizened wizard along the roadside, his mentor, right? He found the potion. He came back to changed man, and now he is doing this back home. You are literally the hero's journey.
I had never thought of that like that. But
Star Wars, you just lived Harry Potter. You literally did the same thing all these guys did. He didn't want to go to join the Alliance. Next thing you know, he's with some crazy old guy learning lightsabers, and now he's across the galaxy fighting.
I didn't know we were going to be discussing Joseph Campbell today. So
you're a Jedi.
But no, I hadn't thought about it like that. But I'll happily, I'll throw my lot in with the Jedi any day.
I love it. All right,
the Force be with us all.
Yeah, and maybe the Force be with you. Yeah, it's almost Catholic though. May the Force be with you, and also with you. Lee, thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic holiday with your family, and you enjoy the season we're having. And we definitely look forward to having you back sometime, hearing more about what you're doing.
I love that, and I hope you guys have a great holiday as well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, this has been ChatGTM, another round, and we'll see you on the other side.
Signing off.
Cool.